All right, I believe we're live. Took a minute there to get adjusted. So today, we're going to be talking about Anaheim, California. We got an open waiting list, and it's getting tougher as we approach summer. We're seeing more and more cases where housing authorities aren't open as quite as frequently, and so it's good that Anaheim is being opening up, and I think there's an anticipation of a second round with Orange County. Now, before we get started, I'm going to do a few introductions. My name is Jay. I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com. We work with clients around upwards of 1,000 a year, and we do casework, and we help people navigate the system and sometimes assist with the process of getting vouchers. Okay, we do not charge people to fill out applications. We don't gain critical information over people like a lot of scam websites you see all over the internet that are hosted out of Russia, China, and other places. And let's see here. Besides that, I'm going to go over some details real quick for you guys. Anaheim is going to be extending their waiting times, and I'm a little bit late actually making this video. So the Anaheim officials have extended the deadline for getting the housing applications for the city's waiting list and vouchers, and they're now funding an additional 300. Now, that may not seem like a lot in relation to this, but I can tell you they didn't really have that many applicants. And one of the bigger issues I think that they were facing in Anaheim is many of the people that were on the list no longer need this. And so it created a very unusual situation. It means there actually isn't enough people to give out vouchers to. So there's going to be an estimated number of people that apply, and those of your seniors and veterans that have experienced domestic violence, or maybe even maybe facing imminent homelessness, your low income. Now, I am very clear that many people believe fundamentally that you need to live in Anaheim or work in Anaheim to get a local preference, but that is just what it is. When you consider all preferences, living locally and working locally is the lowest preference that you could get. It only counts for a small percentage of consideration. So if you're in Hawaii and you're applying in Anaheim to bring that voucher from Anaheim back to Hawaii, it's going to be you'll have more powerful preferences to do so as seniors and low income, having children and disabilities and other factors. So I want to go ahead and pop that bubble, the misbelief that living and working locally is necessary. Anytime a program is federally funded, it must be available to all Americans in all states. That means that you can apply anywhere in the U.S. to any housing authority, and if they're issuing those vouchers, and then you can request portability and bring it back to your own state or city. Okay, you don't always necessarily live there. They give a small amount of preference to you if you do work locally and all that. But I mean, if that's the only thing that you're hinging your case on is the fact that you're local and you're not disabled, senior, and so on, then you may find that that preference isn't worth what you think it is. Okay, another rumor I like to dispel is that a lot of people believe that you need to go and live in Anaheim. Even if you received it, you'd have to live there, and then you'd have to complete a 12-month lease before you could port that voucher. That's not necessarily true. Roughly 30, maybe 40% of all housing authorities will grant instant portability. In other words, you live 1,000 miles away, you applied in their county, and then you ask for permission to take that voucher, move it somewhere else. So that makes it fundamentally easier for people to kind of skip absurd lines. For those of you that live in Florida and California and New York, this could mean not having to wait 15 years, especially if you got a little old town in Iowa with a drawer full of vouchers and no applicants. That means you can get it there and then port it back to New York or Florida or California. So there are lots of ways to approach this. So it's more logical than you sitting there waiting another decade and a half or another 8 years for them to open up, and then you'd be applying against a huge number of people in these cities that are overpopulated and as well have a very dense homeless population. Now, moving on from that, I like to say that it's currently open. You should go and do it today. You have it always. The extension is going to fall all the way to April 14th. And I have linked it up all in the bottom. Now, eligibility is pretty good on this deal. So unless you're making over $67,000 a year, and now most of you are only making half or a fraction of that, then you'd be eligible, okay? $67,000 clearly in Anaheim is a large amount because a lot of people make money there, but that is the case. Again, vouchers are based on a 30% income ratio. In other words, 30% of your income towards the rent and then be subsidized for the rest of the amount. Guys, I want to tell you something. We deal, as I had mentioned earlier, dealing with clients, and we've been doing this now, 22 years. I always tell clients, give it your best efforts. Apply for as many housing authorities as you can, because some of them will grant portability. And if you have the right case details, then it's a potential you getting that, and you can bring it back to wherever you are, whether you live in that county or not. And that's a good situation, because that means you've given your best efforts. If you've been strained through this process for quite a while, and you're trying to learn everything, it takes a while. I mean, I didn't get good as a consultant until about 10 years in, and here we are 22 years later. Now, clearly, I'm more efficient than most of my clients at doing this, and we have an average yield rate between 4 and 6 months, which is relatively short. So I find it imaginative a lot of people believe you really need to be on a list for 8 or 15 or 20 years. You don't. It just means that you don't have all the fundamentals correct. And in order to understand a better process of how all these things works, besides you putting an ink pen to paper and applying and hoping for the best, or going down to the housing authority with a good hard luck story, it'd be better for you to understand their policies, their procedures, Code of Federal Regulation, Title 24, and all the other things wrapped into this. When you start seeing the bigger picture of how they operate, then in some ways you can reverse engineer that and make it work for you. Otherwise, you're in for a hell of a wait. I think that's probably why a lot of people call me. Also, our company received a lot of calls because they have issues with the housing authority or with the landlord. To date, anytime you write in housing authority followed by the word lawsuit, you'll see there are hundreds of pages of articles about housing authorities being sued either by HUD itself, because they are the federal administrator of those funds to the states and PHAs. And much to the disbelief of most people, most PHAs are rolling to a situation now where they are privately owned, and so they're for profit. And so it's in their interest to relegate these activities and casework over to independent companies that are like management companies, which means most of you, every time you're trying to learn something or even try to do something with the housing authority, they either don't answer the phone, and when they do, they give you a very short answer before they hang up. So a lot of people find that to be rather egregious, but we must keep in mind that housing authorities are funded to decide who gets vouchers. They're not going to teach you anything, which means it leaves most of you in the dark and woefully unprepared. And, because I get clients, well, I thought I would just drive by the local housing authority and have print me out a voucher. It doesn't work that way. If you've ever dealt with Medicare and Medicaid, do you see how many telephone books of policies and rules are included in that? HUD is about the same way. And then this program's been rolling now, 80 years. It requires a deep and immense amount of knowledge. If you guys want to learn more about that, I would recommend probably following us on our video. We'll be speaking to the Legal Aid Society and attorneys on, April 27th. I'll be the speaker for the Legal Aid Society, and I will be actually talking to attorneys that are just step under what I do. Because as you know, attorneys are great at practicing law. However, they're not experts in housing. They're expert at housing laws. And so that's where we coalesce with what I know and what they know, and we compare those kind of notes. And that's why I'm going to do those speaking, to let them know what I don't know, and they'll help fill in my blanks as well. So, guys, I hope that you've kind of enjoyed the video, and I want to give a quick update in relation to the cats. Many of you know a big part, coincidentally, 10 years ago, making the channel, one of my cats jumped in the video, and that became a really big topic. These cats of mine, that I rescued them. And so what I was going to say is, we did ultimately have a second litter of kittens at 4:30 a.m. A couple of days, 24 hours ago. She decided to have her kittens in the closet and on a shelf. I had to rescue her and the kitten, and we have her nesting, and she went into labor for about 5.5 hours. She had 5 beautiful Siamese kittens, and we'll be showing that litter of kittens as well as the others pretty soon. And again, I realize there's no correlation between the two, but I know many of you are pet lovers, and you'll know that I am. And since I own the channel, I certainly feel the right to be able to share some personal things in addition talking about the more serious topics of housing. So, all right, guys. Well, I think we'll be back maybe Tuesday, and again, maybe Sunday. And we're going to talk about disability and some of the effects that may have in relation to you getting housing. All right. You enjoy your day, and good luck with Anaheim, California Housing Authority and its waiting list. Bye-bye for now.